Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by and welcome to my regular monthly Everything in Bloom on the 8th. Only it's not the 8th, it's the 6th. I'm cheating. It's got to be done. I'll be busy on the 8th on Sunday, so I'm filming it on the 6th. I will post it on the 8th and I promise I won't cheat. I'm not going to film anything today that wouldn't be in bloom on Sunday anyway, so it will be as though I filmed it Sunday. But the beauty of filming today is I've got sunshine. I've got bright light, so the blooms are going to look nicer for a start. Okay, the only Vanda I've actually got in bloom at the moment is the big orange one. No ID. It's highly likely to have been originally Ascasenda Orange Delight, but I have no guarantee, and there are so many of the Ascasenda types that are bright orange and look the same. It's not worth trying to ID it. It really isn't worth it. I'm quite happy for that to be a special plant for me, got for me by my daughter, and it blooms well. It's a gorgeous colour. That'll do. What's in a name? I don't need it. So that's the only Vanda actually in bloom at the moment. Right, I'm going to work round in the opposite direction for a change. Because it normally starts over behind me. I'm going to start here. This is my only Latouria out in bloom, and I suspect this will be in at least 3 consecutive videos because they last so well. And I am so pleased that I can't pinpoint who really persuaded me, but it was either Rachel or Terry, TD Moore. It was one of the two. But both of them have had well-bloomed Latouria type dendrobiums. I started looking into them and thinking, I can grow those. And then I started looking into them a bit more, and they, you know, many are fragrant. Some have quite large blooms. There's some very weird and wonderful shapes, patterns and colours in amongst the Latourias. And quite honestly, they're perfect for my environment. Why? I mean, I spent over a year and a half trying to get one, and then they all came along at once, and I managed to get a nice little set that I'm happy with. But this is the only one in bloom at the moment, and I can't even remember what the hell it's called. Good job I got a tag, isn't it? This is Roy Tokunaga White Knight. Of course it is. You should know that boy. Anyway, it's been open a while. It's showing no signs of fading at the moment. There are actually 2 spikes there coming out of the top of the same cane. I have other new growths maturing. One here, one round here. So there should be a succession. But I'll live with these for now. Stunning blooms. The depth of colour of that purple is absolutely gorgeous. So that's my Latouria. Where can I go next? So I'm trying to do this methodically because I have a habit of missing things out. This Miltonidium, I'm not sure what the camera's going to do with that because it's poorly lit at the moment, but it's Melissa Briony. The blooms are stunning. If they were fragrant, they'd be up near the top of the list of perfection. Really, really stunning blooms. This Odontoglossum Cross, which I'm never going to remember the name of this flipping thing. It's starting to fade now. You can see the blooms are just, whoops, touch them and they fall off. Just starting to go, but it's probably got another 5 days, maybe a week before the last are gone. And that is Devosiana, and it's an Odontodia, not an Odontoglossum. Oh. But nonetheless, attractive, small blooms and quite a profusion. I only got that because it was actually in bloom at the time, or I probably wouldn't have bothered. Now all I've got to do is get it to do it again when this one's finished. The only Tilumnia that's actually open at the moment is this beauty, and I've forgotten the name of this one again. Ah, that's because it was a no ID, but although I haven't done a tag for it yet, as far as I'm concerned, with a little bit of help, I've got a positive ID on this one. Absolutely positive. So it now has a name, which I'll have to do as a pop-up because I've got no tag out here. something to do with sunshine or sun rays or something like that, and you can see where it gets its name from. Yeah, beautiful colours. Slightly unusual shape, because the top part of the plant, the bloom, is very small, which emphasises the lip, basically. So it works, but that is an unusual shape for a Talumnia. And just looking at this one opening, that is going to be a deep yellow and deep maroon when it opens. So I suspect as time progresses, the orange and the veining will appear later, because it's not there now. So it's going to be a colour changer, but this will be the first new bloom. All the others were already there when I got it. It's already in bloom. So that's that one. Come round here, Peter Comp, nicely backlit at the moment. This has currently got 3 spikes. The oldest spike here is just starting to go. It's dropped its first bloom a couple of days ago, but nonetheless still fully open, and the fragrance from where I'm standing now is stunning. It's got some light on it, and there's something about just a little bit of extra light on a bloom. If it is fragrant, it'll push it. Zygos are the favourite for doing that. But yeah, 3 good spikes on that one at the moment, so it's going to be a while before it blooms again, but you know, I'll take advantage. The little Howiara, that's coming to a close. You can see where the blooms have been dropping. They start opening from the base towards the top, and they die in the same order, so you end up with a few on the end. Lovely little blooms, tiny but well formed. Typical Oncidium type shape, but it's actually a Howiara. That's that one. It's going to be a bit thin out here today, I think. The Phalaenopsis, which again I've forgotten the flipping name, if it had one. I think it did actually. This is a malformed lip. Yeah. Now whether that got bitten as a young bud or not, I'm not sure, but malformed. But this was bought as a pale yellow, and it's faded. It's lost its yellow and turned cream. So I've now got a creamy colour, but the veining on the lip has become more pronounced as the blooms have aged. So it's a colour changer. So if and when I ever get a new spike on that one and they first open, they will be yellow, and then they fade to this lighter creamy sort of colour. Still an attractive bloom. Okay, now what else have I got out here? Let's get the bush out of the way because it's Restrepia time and they're low down. See, I even have to get down on my flipping knees for you lot. Ugh, the things I do. Now, I'm not going to get each individual plant out, and I'll have to look these up and do pop-ups. But most of the Restrepias are actually out in bloom at the moment. This is a good size bloom. That's one of the Eric Young Foundation ones. Much larger blooms on their crosses than your normal type of Restrepias. So I'll have to do pop-ups as I go along. This one's also in bloom at the moment. It's got several. It's got a couple round the back. You see the difference? This one's stripes are made up of spots. I don't know whether, obviously I can't get close in without the tripod, whereas this one's stripes are more stripy. But they're good sized blooms. I mean, that's currently got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's got 3 out, 4 out, and another one just opening. So that's having a little bit of a, oh, hang on, there's another one lurking under a leaf over here. So this one's having a little bit of a flurry at the moment. It's quite a good blooming for that one. Let's get that out of the way. And this large one at the back is also having a little bit of a flurry. This, up until recently, was my second favourite Restrepia, and I've never been able to actually truly show that colour, because it is a deep gold. It's not really yellow. It isn't. It's just a goldy yellow, and with the deep red stripes, it's an incredibly attractive Restrepia. Okay, names obviously will pop up. This was always my favourite again, it's the intensity of the yellow. But these blooms are tiny, yeah? So that's difficult to film. And the latest addition to the collection is this one back here, which, quite honestly, is a larger version of this one. This one over here it's got one flower open, it's got another bud coming. This one's a bit slow at the moment. It didn't like being repotted because I left it too long, so it was more of a shock. But there are buds coming, so it is perking up, and it's just starting to put up clean leaves without distortions, which means the root system's recovering, because these need moisture and they need humidity in the air or they're just not happy. But this is probably now the latest addition and has taken over as my favourite because of it's the depth of the colour, and because this is another Eric Young Foundation one, it's the size of the blooms. Not everything has to be a giant to actually be attractive, but it helps because at least you can get to see it. So and that is all. Oh no, nearly forgot the because I'm not used to having coleogyny blooms, am I? I don't get them. But this little beauty's out, and its mate is just about to open as well, because I've got 2 potfuls of this. This is Coleogyny fimbriata. Lovely little blooms. Right, now that is it out here. The rest of the blooms are now in the house, and I'm going to break off and film them a bit later in the day when the light moves from here to here, because then it'll light up the inside bit a lot better, because otherwise I'll be filming in what relatively is quite low light. So I'll add the rest on later. Difficult to imagine how you can avoid this and forget it completely. Just skip past it. Miltonia sunset. Quite honestly unforgettable. When you see this for real, the colour combinations are unusual. You know, you wouldn't normally put orange with pinky purples and bright yellows, but the pastel-y colours are literally achieved after only 3 or 4 days. When this opens, these colours are bright, so they're good, strong colours, but within 3 or 4 days they turn pastel, and then it stays like that till it goes over, which is a long time. They're well-lasting blooms. I don't think I've got any more spikes coming on this one at the moment, but this has been in bloom for a long time. You know, it's just pushed one spike up after another, so if it has a bit of a rest, it's not the end of the world. It's been out for a very, very long time. You know, succession of spikes, so it's done well. It's been in bloom through most of the summer, I think. A good one. There's always one gets forgotten. In the back of my mind I knew there was something lurking, but where I've shuffled everything around, this was in a different place, so I'd forgot it. This is my last remaining bloom on Arengus decariana, because all the others dropped when I took it to the Orchid Society. Nonetheless, there's one left. That may drop by Sunday, but tough. It's going in there. It's going to be a long time before I get Arengus blooms on this plant again, and to lose them all after a couple of days was slightly disappointing, is the polite version. But yeah, attractive little blooms, lovely long spur, and yeah, it'll be a while before we see those again. And then next time it gets to stay here, and instead of having one silly little bloom left on the end that was a late bud, effectively, we'll end up with the dozen lovely blooms on the spike, like when it started. Nuisance, but stuff happens and you learn and you don't do it again. That's the idea. Okay, well, I've got a set of plants indoors now, which makes filming a lot more difficult because they're permanently backlit, so I will play with the light with the software. It's easier than playing with the camera, quite honestly, and I can see what I'm doing. Anyway, Phalaenopsis mainly in here. This one is going. but it's branched out nicely silhouetted too. So there will be a succession of another 4 or 5 blooms. Lovely colours, but coming to the end, it may extend on the main thing, but the chances are as soon as these blooms fade, this part of the spike can come off and I'll leave the extension as it's decided to do one. This mini Phalaenopsis here is its last bloom basically. This one's going to fall in the next day or so. That'll just leave one. I don't believe that's going to extend, and quite honestly the mini phals are not vigorous. This hasn't got an excellent root system, but it has got one, and at the moment it's gone into vegetative growth. Did that come out right? Yeah, I think so. i.e. it's got a new leaf, and I'd rather put some energy in the plant and give it a rest for a bit now. So I think as soon as this bloom drops off, I'll take that spike off. The Sweet Memory is on its last bloom. It's only had 2 for a while now. One dropped off a couple of days ago, so it's on its last one. That spike may push on. It certainly hasn't dried up or anything like that, so when this last bloom comes off, this spike may extend. We'll have to wait and see. But again, you know, this one's starting a new leaf, and it takes a lot out of this plant to produce a new leaf because they are so large. So I'll have to see what happens. If it looks like that leaf is suffering, I mean, it has got quite a good root system, that. I don't see why it shouldn't be able to do both, but we'll see how it goes. My 2 Psychopsis are in here. This, quite honestly, is a beauty, but it's come indoors for the warmth. I set both my Psychopsis back last year, and I think it was just that they got too cold. The plant itself is in a sorry state, but it's recovering now. Its latest leaf has got the patterning on it, and it's showing signs of improvement here at the bloom. Because these are perpetual, the spike lasts donkey's years, literally. The spikes can go on for 10 years plus, just one bloom after the other. But to do that, it's got to be able to feed the spike effectively and push the bloom out. This is the first full-size bloom that this plant has actually done for a while, so it must be recovering. And down in that moss, I believe there are some roots growing, so a success there. And the other one, I'm going to have to stand on a chair. It's up near the flipping roof. Right, the only place I could actually accommodate this any sense was on the top shelf because of the height of the spike. So it's in the dark, basically. This is the alba form of the species, Papilio, so it's doing okay, and the plant has definitely made a reasonable recovery. I've got good roots pushing out at long last, and I do have a new growth coming, so that plant's okay. It's going to make it, which means I should get a succession of those blooms. And now I'm going to cheat. That is not an orchid, but it's with the orchids. That's the only excuse I can give it. It's a Streptocarpus. It's been in bloom like that since I got it. It just keeps on pushing up, one spike after another. And it's currently producing some new leaves too. Got 1, 2, 3 new leaves coming on it. They do grow quite large, the leaves. They do take up a bit of space. But up until the orchids came in, it's had the end of the dining room table to itself. And it just keeps blooming, and I'm sure the camera's not going to really show the depth of colour on this. I only got this because of the colour. I knew nothing about how to look after them or anything, but it's quite easy to look these things up. Do not water from the top, water from the bottom. Allowed to get virtually dry in between, and then let them soak up some stuff and give them a bit of feed. So it's pretty straightforward, really. Quite honestly, it's like any other plant if you think about it. But some plants are very susceptible to rot at the base if you water from the top. And this is one of those. So a stunning bloom. Anyway, not an orchid. It's a Streptocarpa. Anyway, that's the end of the everything in bloom for the 8th. I say every time that one day I'm going to do this and there'll be absolutely nothing in bloom, but I know I've got a succession of buds coming along and spikes pushing on now, so in a month's time, even if everything I've just filmed now is gone, there'll be things coming along to replace them. So that's the part of the idea of having the sheer number of orchids, is that there's always something in bloom and always something to look forward to, always some new buds, always some new spikes. It's a progression, you know. Can't expect everything to be in bloom all at once. The one that's going to be the good one, I think, is either March and or April, when all of the dendrobiums kick off after their winter rest, he says with his fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. Okay, thanks for dropping by. I hope you've enjoyed all my blooms for the month of October, and we'll see what's around in November. See you again.